video for Quack section 4.2, and the grammar lesson for this section is subject-verb agreement. On your handout, you'll see that there are 11 rules for subject-verb agreement. Each of these slides is going to have one of those rules for you to fill in, and it'll also have an example. So, rule number 1 is that when the subject of a sentence is composed of two or more nouns or pronouns connected by and, you're going to go ahead and use a plural verb. So in this example, she and her friends are at the fair. You have two or more nouns or pronouns, she and her friends, joined by and, so you're going to use the plural verb are instead of the singular verb is. Rule number 2, when two or more singular nouns or pronouns are connected by or nor, you're going to use a singular verb. The book or the pen is in the drawer. So we have the book and the pen, but they're joined by or, so it's talking about one or the other, not both. So you're going to go ahead and use a singular verb with is. Rule number 3, when a compound subject contains both a singular and a plural noun or pronoun joined by or nor, the verb should agree with the part of the subject that is nearer to the verb. Okay, so you're going to have a singular and a plural noun in your subject. So in the first example, the boy or his friend, so the boy is singular and his friends is plural, run every day. So you see that run is the verb and it's closest to his friends, which is plural, so you'll go ahead and use run. In the next example, his friends or the boy runs every day. The boy is closest to the verb and that's singular, so you would use the singular form of the verb run, which is runs. Rule number 4, doesn't is a contraction of does not and should be used only with a singular subject, whereas don't is a contraction of do not and should be used only with a plural subject. The exception to this rule appears in the case of the first person and second person pronouns I and you, and with these pronouns the contraction don't should be used. So the examples, he doesn't like it or they don't like it. Rule number 5, don't be misled by a phrase, normally a prepositional phrase, that comes between the subject and the verb. The verb should agree with the subject, not with the noun or pronoun that's in the phrase. So in the example, one of the boxes is open. Of the boxes is our prepositional phrase, and it's coming between the subject one and the verb is. But you want your verb is to agree with the subject, which is one, which is singular, rather than boxes, which is plural. So it should say one of the boxes is open, rather than one of the boxes are open. Rule number 6, the words each one, either, neither, everyone, everybody, anybody, anyone, nobody, somebody, someone, and no one are singular and require a singular verb. This can kind of get tricky because you're not sure how many you're actually talking about. Each of these hot dogs is juicy is the example for that one. Rule number 7, nouns such as civics, mathematics, dollars, measles, and news require singular verbs. So in the example, the news is on at 6. Even though news is a plural word with an S on the end, it's still going to take a singular form of the verb because it just sounds silly to say the news are on at 6. The word dollars is actually a special case. When talking about an amount of money, it requires a singular verb, but when referring to the dollars themselves, a plural verb is required. Rule number 8, nouns such as scissors, tweezers, trousers, and shears require plural verbs. You can kind of remember that because there are two parts to these things, two blades and a pair of scissors, things like that. So these scissors are dull would be the correct way to say that. Rule number 9, in sentences beginning with there is or there are, the subject follows the verb. Since there is not the subject, the verb agrees with what follows. There is and there are actually a pretty poor way of writing. You try to avoid them as much as possible, but sometimes they tend to show up. So in the example, there are many questions. There is not the subject. What's actually the subject is the questions. So you want your verb are to agree with questions, not with there. So with the second example, there is a question. Obviously, question is agreeing with the singular verb is. Rule number 10, collective nouns are words that imply more than one person, but that are considered singular and take a singular verb, such as group, team, committee, class, and family. So the team runs during practice. Even though there are multiple people on a team, that's still going to take a singular verb. So the team as one collective unit runs during practice. And our last rule, number 11, expressions such as with, together with, including, accompanied by, in addition to, or as well do not change the number of the subject. If the subject is singular, the verb is to. So the president, accompanied by his wife, is traveling to India. Even though the president with his wife is more than one person, because it's one of those phrases accompanied by, we're just going to use the singular verb is. Okay, so at this point you should have all 11 of your rules filled in. There are some examples at the bottom, and then we will go over this more in class.